welcome everyone who's on this call already. It's really great to have you here. And there's two things that we're going to be doing tonight. If you joined us last week, I hope you really enjoyed that, and I hope that's why you're coming back. There's two things that we're going to go through tonight. The first thing we're going to go through is with Terry Tran, and he was going to talk about how to see a recession coming, and he is going to talk about that, guaranteed. How to see a recession coming and how to avoid kind of getting taken out by one, basically. So some of the signs to look for, how to avoid being taken out by it. But one of the other things that I'm really excited about, well, something that I'm really excited about right now, and we'll switch things around a little bit. So I'm going to have a chat now with Tim. Hang on. Let's this guy here. Right, a guy that looks the same in his profile photo as in real life, which apparently I don't. So I was having this discussion before, and I think I'm kind of I guess the reason that having a chat with Tim tonight is because Tim, we had a conversation. It was probably. Actually, no. I'm going to give you I'll let people know where you're from. So, Tim Greenham, his business is called Emerald Building Services. He'll give you the lowdown about how long he's been doing it for and all that type of thing. We've been working together for about 18 months. Tim's local here on the Mornington Peninsula, does a lot of work locally, has a really great reputation. Really great business right now. And one of the thing that kind of prompted me to get Tim on tonight was really, we were having a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and Tim called me up with a win, which was an amazing win. And I think I shared it on one of my calls, that just told me that you'd received, all these payments, had all these jobs, you've won some pretty decent jobs recently. Received some payments, cash flow is going amazing, expecting the cash flow to get better, looking at your profit margins, that's looking amazing too. And I said to you, Tim, I said, so when's the last time you had that much cash in your bank account? And you said never. And so I thought, why don't we share some of the stuff that you've actually, where you've come from, some of the stuff that you've actually done, because everyone's talking about crisis right now. And it's great I think, there are certainly some things that we can be doing to put our business in the right position in these times. So there's a bit of an intro for you. How are you, mate? Oh, even the same top as your profile photo. All right. Let's do this, huh? So, Tim, do you want to just introduce yourself? And, well, I've kind of introduced you. But if you want to just introduce kind of your business and what you do and all that kind of stuff, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, no worries. So Tim from Emerald Building Services. We specialise in renovations, extensions and custom new builds on the Mornington Peninsula. We only service the Mornington Peninsula these days, thankfully, after a lot of hard work. And yeah, I don't know. I guess you'll find out everything else shortly.
Cool. All right. So I guess the first thing is, I've kind of told a bit of a story about where you are now, but I think what would be really useful for everyone watching is where you started off. Like, we've been working together now for, I think it's about 18 months. And, what did things look like for you back then, for the business? How was everything going for you?
So when we first met, I was in the midst of trying to grow my business and going nowhere fast. We had a few probably tough years where I didn't actually do any more turnover, probably for 3 years in a row. turnover was no more, but I had more guys on, more overheads, which meant less in the pocket for me at the end of the day. So that's obviously that was sort of a bit of a turning point where it was like, well, what am I doing this for when my apprentices are earning more money than me? And the accountant's complaining at the end of the year, like, where's all your money? It was a bit of a realization, kick in the guts. It's like, well, I can earn more money going to work for someone else. So I need to do something about it or need to close up shop.
Yeah. Cool. And so I guess, I guess that's some of the frustrations. Like what was the thing that kind of led you to reach out for help, I guess?
After several mountain bike rides and talking about my business to you for free.
You're not allowed to say that here.
Oh, sorry.
Nothing's for free.
Nothing's for free. No, but what was a turning point? I realized that I was spending more time working than I wanted to. I was working full time on the tools, 5 days a week. We only work Monday to Friday, but every night I was in the office. On the weekends, at least on the Sunday, I was in the office on the weekend. It was starting to have an impact on my relationships with my wife, with friends, family. It was, I didn't have time to do the things I love doing, mountain biking, snowboarding. I just felt like I was always working, but not getting anywhere at all. Like there was nothing at the end of the day for me to go, well, that was worth it. I just felt like I was stuck in a bit of a hole.
Yeah, cool.
And I needed a lifeline.
Cool. And so you're welcome to share numbers, whatever, or not share those. That's totally fine too. All right. Well, look, let's just go straight in. I think that's enough of that. I think that paints a pretty clear picture. By the way, what I'd love to hear, maybe just type in the chat, can you relate to that, basically? And by the way, so if you can relate to that, just type in relate. One thing that I want you to do is, if you've got Rob, I just saw your message, Rob. He's paid with his soul. Rob, that's nasty, dude. Who invited you? What was I going to say? Guys, if you've got questions that come up for you, I might not ask them straight away, but certainly type them in the chat and we'll get to questions as we go. All right. So as the questions come up for you, that's totally fine for you to type them in the chat. Okay. So can you talk us through some of the, Tim, talk us through some of the key things that you then started to do and some of the, the impact of the changes that you're making?
Yeah, no worries. Probably the first thing that we did at the very start was you asked me, write down a list of all the things you do in your business. And so I wrote away, probably there was 15 or 20 things are the main tasks on that list. And then we said, well, okay, what are the things you have to do in your business? That you're the only person in this business that can do them. I think there was 3 or 4 things on that whole list that were the things that I actually had to implement myself. And so that was our starting point. So first thing I did was outsource my phone calls. That probably gained me about between 4 and 8 hours a week, outsourcing my phone calls to an offsite reception, so that I was able to answer the phone calls if I wanted to, but divert it after whatever 15 seconds, or if I didn't know the number. So now every number that I get that pops up on my phone that I don't know just goes straight through the offsite reception, and they take the details down, send us through an email. Other things on there, bookkeeping, we outsourced that. That was probably the next thing I did. Outsourced all bookkeeping, so all the payrolls and all of that stuff is now done by a local company. Then next thing we did was look at admin stuff, which was probably one of the best things that we've implemented. And now I've got admin.
Yeah, everyone needs a Kelly, right?
Everyone needs a Kelly. Everyone needs a Kelly. She was coming back from 3 years on maternity leave, and she was actually a client twice over. We'd done 2 little projects for her over the years, and we just happened to be chatting about, where we're going with the business and stuff. And she's like, that's what I used to do for a living, right? I'm like, no. And now,
right.
We're probably, I think she's been working for me for 7 months now. She's now started out 1 day, then 2 days, then 3 days a week. She said she'll give me a day every year.
So you're a couple of years off.
So we're a couple of years off full time for Kelly. But yeah, that was a massive thing that's helped structure our business in such a way that I'm not the first person that a new referral actually gets to talk to. I'm the third chain in the link, or link in the chain. So not only creates a more professional business, because there's people that new referrals actually have to talk to our offsite reception, which answers it as Emerald Building Services. It's not that there's some random answering it, taking a phone call for us. Like, they actually answer it in a professional manner. And so that whoever's calling in thinks that they're part of our business. And then from there it goes on to Kelly. She deals with them. If they pass the questions that she asks them as part of our sales process, then they get to have a chat with me in person.
Cool.
So
cool.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm drawing this little framework is because this is the framework that we actually use to figure out what you're going to outsource and what you're going to keep doing. So what are some of the things that you started to then focus on? Because I think it's really helpful to say, we started to look at how we can remove this stuff, and what are some of the things that you then switched to doing?
So what that enabled me to have was time. Time was something I was very short on before. You've only got 24 hours in a day, and you can't use all of them for work. You've got to sleep in there. You've got to spend time with family. And so the big thing there was time that it gave me. That gave me time to work on those core things that we had worked out in my business that I had to do. And it's helped me to be able to have time to actually look at building processes into the business, because there wasn't any processes at all. It was just everything that was in my head and on an Excel spreadsheet before. And we've come a long way since then. Yeah. So would you say that one of the things was implementing processes that you've shifted to doing? Yeah, definitely. We had to actually start from scratch because there was no processes. So now,
give me an example of a process. I just want this to be as helpful for everyone. And guys, again, if you've got questions, please type them in the chat. Don't just be static listening, because it's the more we all interact, the more helpful this is going to be for you. So give me an example of a process that was really helpful for you, Tim.
Oh, hang on a sec.
There goes that phone.
Yep. On silent. Sorry.
All good.
Oh, I've lost. There you are.
Yeah. So give me an example of a process.
Okay. So process
that you actually focused on.
Okay. So probably the biggest process that we initially focused on was our sales process. a non-existent element in our business before.
Yeah.
I was just pretty much winging it.
Yeah.
But now we have a process where I touched on a little bit of before how I'm the third person that gets spoken to, but essentially we've developed a list of questions that Kelly actually asks a potential client that helps us to actually figure out whether or not they're a good fit to our business. Because before I was taking whatever came in the door. And as a result, over the years, I've lost a lot of money from not taking on the right clients, not being able to, see the future and whether or not this is going to be a good job, whether or not they're going to pay me, whether or not they're the sort of people I actually want to deal with, whether or not they're going to be beneficial to me moving forward, whether I'm going to get more work from them, referring me on to other people. But our sales process now is set up in a way that we're really qualifying those clients more so than they're actually qualifying us, because I'm actually choosing at the end of the day whether or not I want to take them on and whether they're worth putting the effort in to actually go through that quote process, because as every tradie knows, like, quoting is the last thing you want to do at the end of the day when you've been on the tools. But it's the only thing that needs to be done right in the business to actually make money. If you don't quote right, then at the end of the day, you're never going to make money. And too often we don't put enough effort into quotes. And what that does is means we sell ourselves short at the end of the day because we haven't included all the things, or we try and get them in variation. And clients hate variations. Like they really do not like signing off on a job, say this is what they're going to get, thinking that they're going to get what's in their head. And at the end of the day, you go, oh, but there's this variation and this and this and this. And so I spent years getting undercut by tradies doing that because that's not the sort of person I am. I want people to see our process and see that I'm transparent, and this is how we do business. And we try and educate them on the actual building process. And these are the ins and outs of what's involved in this job. It's not something that's, it's not off the block that you don't see all of the things behind the scene and you get, 60% off the cost. That's not how it works. So we've spent a lot of time building this process to actually educate clients in order to help qualify them whether or not they actually fit our business.
Yeah, cool. So guys, what I've just drawn for you is just it's a little snippet of what the sales process actually should look like for a business like yours, which is this is the sale. This is like the really, really high level overview. And there's more to it than this. I won't try to draw it all, but qualify, then quantify, just in case you can't read my writing, of course, and then quote. So it's a 3-step process, not just anyway, so that'll hopefully give you a bit of an idea. All right. So sales process. Now, really quickly, Derek loves my whiteboards. Really quickly, Brenton has asked what types of questions you ask.
Absolutely. Very simple questions like, number one, do they have a budget? Because if people don't have a budget in mind, they have no idea what they're up against, and you could be wasting all of your time and all of their time because they can't afford to do what they're envisioning, and you've just spent 10, 20 hours quoting on that job. So budget is a big thing. The time frame, their time frame, how long they're expecting this to actually take, because the building process is it varies. It doesn't need to go to town planning. Do you have plans? Do you have engineering? Have you done soil reports? Do you have all the things you need to actually price a project adequately? Because there's certain things that for everyone to be able to nail down that price, you actually need your engineering, your architecturals, your energy report, your bell rating, all of those things affect the end cost. And if you can't actually narrow those down, you aren't quoting on the same thing that your potential competitor is quoting on. And that means you're not comparing apples for apples. That means prices vary massively. And the only reason they vary that much is because there's no consistency in what anyone's quoting. And that's where clients get really disappointed at the end of the day, because they're like, oh, this guy was 50 grand cheaper, I'm going with him. But then he hasn't included X, Y, and Z because we're quoting off different things.
I hope that kind of answers some of your question, Brenton. I think we'll try and we won't be able to go through the entire process. It took a long time to train and implement this process. So this is a snippet of it tonight, but certainly, hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, perfect. All right, cool. And keep asking questions, guys. Keep asking questions. All right. So, was there anything else that you've been implementing that you thought was really helpful for you and would be helpful for people listening? Like for instance, you've now let's just say you're not going and screaming out to everyone that you're ready to buy your Ferrari right now. That might happen soon, but how is it that you end up with better off now in a crisis situation financially than you were before? Rob reckons just a Lambo. What do you mean just a Lambo, Rob? What's that supposed to mean? So how does that work? Because I think that's something that's going to be really interesting and probably I hope helpful for everyone on this call.
Yeah. Well, part of the whole process, as everyone knows, is you have to sign a contract with progress payments. Progress payments for me were always like a clear-cut sort of thing. Like obviously we specialize in renovation extension, so it's not the standard progress payments. We always vary our contracts, but I would always vary them to like a specific stage. So it would be like, joinery install plus stone or something like that. That was very specific, which meant I would only ever get paid for the work once those two things that were explained in the progress payment were completed. And if one of those things get held up, for instance, Christmas break, stone gets ordered beforehand, but all the joinery's in, I've still got to pay for all of that joinery before Christmas. But the stone doesn't get put in until 6-8 weeks later. That means I become the bank. I've done that for far too many years, and it's me paying the interest at the end of the day, not the client. And so what we do as part of our progress payments now is we've broken those down back to sort of about a five-stage progress payment, where we're actually using the client's money to pay for their project. So that when I'm no longer the bank, so we vary it in such a way that we're actually getting a pre-order deposit as part of one of the early stages of the progress payment, which every trade, that orders something wants a deposit. The heating and cooling guys want a deposit for the unit, so that because everyone's got 30-day accounts, so it needs to be paid. The stone guys, they want 50% deposit up front. The joinery guys want 50% deposit. Everyone who has a material in a project, like the roofers, everyone wants that stuff paid for because they know that it's going to take longer for them to actually do the project than it is for their accounts to be due. So by us restructuring the progress payment stages and getting the clients to sign off on it, we're not hiding the fact that we're changing this. We're just explaining to the clients that all of these things are needed to be paid for well in advance. Like windows, for instance, sometimes 6 or 8 weeks ahead of time, we've got to pay for those windows. And as soon as they hit site, they need to be paid for. But if that next progress stage is 2 months down the track, well, we've got to float that cash for that period of time. So by restructuring the percentages, what we're actually doing is letting a lot of these trades float between the progress stages. So it's not as specific, but it encompasses a lot more. but we're getting that pre-order deposit as part of like your base stage or something like that, something tangible that a bank can sign off on, that they can actually see. But as long as you're clear with the clients, they just want clarity at the end of the day. So if you're clear on what your intentions are with that money, and you show them that I've got to order this, 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 and this. It's not a specific cost. It's a percentage of all of those things. If you're very clear with your scope of works and you actually give them the detail that they're looking for, because quite often they're professionals, they're academics, they want to know what's involved in a project, but they still want it in layman's terms. They don't want builders speak. So you've really got to give them the detail they need to not question why they're having to pay for it, because you've already offered up that information.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So cool. So progress payments, and what you're essentially saying is, bring progress payments forward. If you can, bring your progress payments forward so that you're not funding everything out of your own pocket all the time. So the client's actually paying for it in a bit more of a timely manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, there was a little bit more. So there's another thing that I think, I don't know how helpful you found it, but I think that there was a little bit of a side effect of, I think, your sales process and maybe having a bit more time to look at some stuff that really was probably helping your cash flow, which is technically not a cash flow thing, but which is really profitability, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about like where you were in terms of, at least maybe share profit margins, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, no worries.
How you switched all that stuff up and what kind of changes got made and then where you're sitting at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. So with profit margins, obviously, that's obviously what we get at the end of the day. Well, what we think we get at the end of the day. It's not until you actually delve into what you're including in that profit margin, when you actually realize that that's not what you're making. You're not making anywhere near what you think you're making. If your profit margin includes stuff like your project management, your administration costs, all of those little, like plan printing, all those little things that you think you don't actually price them into a project, then that all comes out as an overhead out of that profit margin at the end of the day. I used to use a sort of like a sliding scale with my profit margin. Anything under 100,000 was like a 20% margin, and then it would slide up and down depending on how big the project was. And when I actually looked over it, it was like I was earning more profit on a $100,000 job than I was on a $400,000 job. And it was like,
what would be really helpful, I think, is how you were calculating your profit margins back then and how you're calculating them now.
Yeah, so you'll probably be able to explain this a little better than me because I still struggle with the concept. But there's a big difference between margin and markup. So what I was charging out as a 20% deposit margin, essentially was only like close to a 15% markup. Is that how? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically, I mean, I remember you were charging. You basically looked at profit margins as being, and you were charging a markup. So you were taking an amount, marking it up, which unfortunately on the flip side of that, what that means is that you could never have had the 20% left as a profit margin anyway, because it was never there to begin with, right? So what you only had kind of a 15% margin to begin with, and then that got depleted quite a bit because of all these extra things. So what you've now got is you, instead of charging a markup and then not including all these other costs like project management and things like that, you've now got a margin and everything else is actually included. So you're making that margin at the end of the day. Yeah,
100%. Through this process as well, like with the qualifying all of our clients, we're actually figuring out, what they can afford and all that sort of stuff as well, and whether or not they're not necessarily, we're not judging people on what they're earning, but but we're working out whether or not they can afford us with the markup that we actually need to achieve to actually earn a living. Because what I was doing was with that sliding scale, it was like all of a sudden I was down to 10%. And at the end of the day, like, you can't live off 10% when if a job goes wrong, there's your 10% gone. Like one big mistake in a little job, and all of your profit at the end of the day is absolutely gone. But now we're working off a minimum of 20% markup, but depending on the type of project,
Margin or markup?
So you always get me with this. No, all so right. Margin. So we're working off a 25% mark.
Yeah. So here's all right. So guys, and Rob's saying, let's just explain this quickly, right?
Yeah.
So guys, let's just make sure it's. I'll explain this as simply as I can, because I'm not an accountant and don't have any aspirations to be. And if I had one on a call, I'll just get them to do it for me, right? So, however, the difference between markup and margin is really, really simple, right? So if we look at markup, right? You basically get a dollar value, say $100. Your jobs are all much bigger than that, right? I'm just saying, but we're starting with $100 because that makes it easier for my head. Okay. And if you say, I'm charging a 20% markup, that's totally fine. But 20% by anyone's calculations on $100 is $20, right? So on a 20% markup, your $100 job, you're doing $120. Right? The problem is that when you calculate that back, it was never, you've never got the 20% margin. So if you wanted to calculate a 20% margin, you're actually calculating it backwards, okay? And to get a 20% margin, the simplest equation that I can do, a 20% margin is actually a 25% markup, all right? So to get back to the $100, 20% margin will actually give you $125. If you pull your calculator out and say 125 minus 20%, that'll give you $100 back. All right. So really simply, now that is really simple, and it's and on that equation it's only $5. But when you're dealing with $120,000 or $125,000, that's then $5,000, of course. And when you're dealing in millions, it's about 50. So it can make a massive difference. And what it means is that this here, let me just highlight what I'm trying to talk about here. This $120 equation is more like it's 15-ish%.
Yeah.
Margin, right? So it's actually, yeah. I hope, guys, can you just type in the chat, Tate, if that explanation makes sense? Troy's good. I've got worksheets that just, that make it easier for me to explain it. I don't have to explain it. We just get someone to do a worksheet and explains it to themselves. Yeah. All right. Brilliant. Do $120 divided by 100. Rob, I think it sounds like everyone's got a handle on it. We've got some worksheets that I'm probably happy to share, to be honest. So we can share that just to make life easier. Derek's asked a question. Do you mark up on the materials you purchase for each project? Sorry.
So we work off the whole job. It's not just individual. So I'm marking up or adding margin to the job as a whole. So take the whole job, and then calculate that out over the whole job. So I'm earning, I'm earning that all off of my carpenters that are on wages. I'm earning that off the materials from everyone. Every subcontractor, I'm earning that off.
So to answer that question, Derek, the answer is yes on materials and labour. Now, so if I look at that, is there anything else that you've kind of done over the last 18 months? Like, I know there's been a lot, and like, you know, you probably think back and maybe sometimes it's difficult to remember everything, I guess. But is there anything else you can think of that might be really helpful for these guys that we can explain to them in the next couple of minutes? And then I think I might open up for some more questions.
So any other sort of key things that we've done?
Yeah, just key things that have happened along the way for you. Yeah. And if you can't think of anything, then that's totally fine too.
I'm glad
we can just open up for questions, and we can, and actually the other thing, I'm going to throw you a little lifeline here. So Kathy, we've got some cool questions coming through. So I'm going to get to those in 2 seconds. What do things look like now? So you've gone through, you know, a few of these different processes.
Yep.
You know, what do things look like now and for the future in comparison to where you started off?
So it's obviously taken a long time to build these processes and implement all these processes into our business. And just to give you a bit of an idea, it's taken a long time for this to happen. We've been working for probably 18 months. But what was it? Was it 6 weeks ago or something? We did that intensive with all of the...
It was. Yeah. It was... when was it? It was like... It feels like 3 years ago, right?
Pre-coronavirus.
Yeah. But I think it was about, I don't know. I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, actually. It was anyway.
Yeah. So when we did that intensive, we looked into buffer days. How long can your business survive if no more invoices come in? So after all your expenses are paid, everything you owed, what invoices are outstanding to come in? The calculation worked out that I had 4.5 days to survive. I had 4.5 days of money in the bank after I paid out everyone before I needed more money to come in. After implementing the progress payment system that's we've now implemented across the board with all our projects, now I think we did the calculation the other day and it was 72 days buffer. So just by changing those few things and changing around how we do progress payments, and it means that this all happened like literally the week that coronavirus came into play and everyone was losing the plot. And all of a sudden we've got 73 days, not 4.5. Because we implemented it 4 months ago, this process, but it's now coming into effect. So it's definitely, it's not something that happens overnight. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of hard work to set up this stuff. But once you do, it literally changed overnight from 4.5 days to 73 days.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. All right. That's awesome. So instead of having enough cash to keep you going for the next 4.5 days, you've got enough cash to keep you going for the next 73 days, and that's still growing, right?
Yeah. That's just off one of these projects.
Yeah, exactly. And really, that was work in progress from the previous 18 months, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right. So I've got a few questions for you, and then we'll keep moving, and then I'll leave you alone, pretty much, right? I'll let you just watch Terry. Do his thing. So Kathy's asked, what sort of advertising do you do?
Can you see the logo on my shirt? I've got
that's the overly clever response.
No, literally, like, we have a couple vehicles, a couple trailers, signage on our factory, other than that, we're part of a business networking group, which I encourage everyone to get involved in. Networking with local businesses is key to success in your business. I'm part of a group called BNI, Business Network International, all over Australia, all over the world. If you can get involved in one of those, game changer, absolute game changer. But other than that, or RBN.
RBN. Yeah, totally. RBN. What's the other one? Building Dreams, Mornington Peninsula. Tara's on, I think, too.
Yeah.
Tara, I haven't heard from you. Yeah, she's on. Yeah, all of those, right? So, all of the different letters.
Yeah. So any business networking where you're not just walking into a room and just holding a drink in your hand and having a chat to a couple people. That's not necessarily going to get you business. Quite often I found with those types of events is you're in the room with essentially your competitors. You're not going to come out of that with any business. You need to get involved in a networking group where everyone else there becomes your marketing team. BNI is that for me. I've been part of that for 2 years. Part of that has helped with all of the Facebook promotion stuff. I don't do any of that. Like people, other clients, people from my networking group, they jump on and do all that stuff for me. I don't pay anyone to do advertising for me.
Yeah. There is a certain type of networking that really works and a certain type of networking that really doesn't work. And you've got to just do the ones that actually work. And that means that, look, it needs to have ROI. Obviously, that's really obvious to say, but there are certain things that you need to do, like make sure that people are actually compelled or incentivized in some way to want to refer you and all that type of thing. So I won't go too much into that. I've got two questions because we've got to move to Terry pretty much. I don't want to cut his time down. The one quick question is you're quoting the way that you're quoting now is much different to the way that you're quoting before as a result of changing your sales process, right? One of the biggest changes that you've made is what?
One of the biggest changes I've made with my quoting process.
The actual quote.
The actual quote. So we now operate off a proposal system as opposed to a quote. So what that is quite often a builder will give a potential client a couple page document that says this is what your project is and this is X amount, $500,000. But there's no detail, there's no personability about the whole process. You're not building a relationship. You're literally handing someone a document and going, here's $500,000 quote. They have no idea what they're getting. None whatsoever. You need to build a process where you're actually educating the client and you're building a relationship with the client through the whole process. We now do proposals, which is essentially a 15 to 20 page document. But we're being paid for these. So that was probably one of the things that took me the longest to actually jump on board, to actually do. Like for years I've been told that you need to do paid quotes. And for years I was dead against it because I thought, how can we charge for this? Like, how is it possible? No one's ever going to pay. But what it does do by implementing a paid proposal or paid quote is that is part of your qualifying process. If someone's not prepared to pay you for a small portion of your time that it actually takes you to prepare that document for them, how are they going to be on the same level? How are they going to respect you enough to actually look eye to eye with you and work through the process of completing their project and actually have enough respect for you? If they don't respect you enough to pay you for a portion of your time, how's it going to end at the end of the day? And that really cuts out a lot of the tire kickers. That was something I really, really struggled with over the years. Like, even when you thought you'd worked them out, the ones that can talk the talk are always the ones that do you over, because you think you've got them worked out, and you're like, oh, this is a great client. This guy's going to be great, but he's just telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah,
he's just telling you what you want to hear. And through this proposal sort of stage, we're actually educating them on the whole process, and it's something that other people aren't doing. Like, people might be giving two or three pages of information, but that's not enough to actually give them confidence in you. There's not enough information there to actually to give them clarity on what they're getting at the end of the day. So by giving them that information, it's at the end of the day, you've pretty much preempted their questions by answering them for them.
Yeah, no, perfect. No, and well done too on implementing all that. That's amazing.
Thanks,
all right, so to begin with, I want to now. Jared had another question, and he was asking about managing subcontractors. I think that's probably going to be a long question to answer. What I would suggest is it okay for some of these guys on the call today to just get in contact with you and ask you a couple of questions that maybe they didn't get a chance to ask you, or ask through the Facebook group?
Yeah, no problem.
Is that cool? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So Jared, is that cool with you? Perfect. Right. So you're welcome to get in touch with Tim. So Tim, thank you very much. Guys, if you're listening, could you please type in the biggest insight out of all of that for you? We're gonna give that kind of 60 seconds. I'll read them all out. And a couple of people are already saying, thanks, Tim. So thanks. Awesome.
No problem.
So biggest insight, and was it valuable for you? Right.
While they're just doing that, mate, I just want to I want to make it clear from where we were 18 months ago, before I met you, before I was involved in BNI, that networking group. In the last 18 months, well, we'll say the first year of that time, working with you and this group, I tripled my turnover. And in the past 4 to 6 months, we've already exceeded that again for this financial year. The contracts we've signed have exceeded the last financial year's total turnover, and we've got 3 contracts signed. That by working through this process, we've actually qualified those clients. We've got the right clientele that we want to be working with, the people who are happy to pay money, happy to pay the margins that we're asking for. It's not like we're retiring on their projects. It's not it.
Yeah.
And they need to know that. They need to know that you're not ripping them off.
Yeah.
They need to have the information there, and you need to have the answers to their questions before they ask them. You need to know the job inside and out, so that you can actually give them confidence that what they're paying for is value and is quality, and they're not going to have any problems.
Absolutely. Mate, you're killing it. Well done. And I'm really happy for you, and it's great to see. It's been really good for me to see what's everything kind of evolve and the changes. Some of these things have been well outside of your comfort zone, let's say, and you've gone in and you've done it. It's been amazing, and really, really happy for what's going on. I'm going to read out some of these things, and then I'm going to let you, mate, once again, thank you very much for coming on and sharing some of this stuff, because it's really great. I love the fact that you're happy to share. So a couple of things. I'm going to go through some insights here. Working back from the final figure to achieve actual margins. Yes, margin versus markup. Crazy if you're doing it the wrong way, and you're losing money every time you do it, right? Change in mindset. Awesome. Paid quotes, says Troy. Nikki says, great job, Tim. Such good information. Brenton wants to hear more about getting paid to quote. Brenton, just tune in, mate. We'll make something happen for you. And Adam says, thanks, Tim. Great buffer. Tara is proud of you, mate. And Derek says, thanks. So, mate, on behalf of everyone here, thank you very much.
No worries.
And I'm going to chat with you again soon, but you need to hang around for what's coming up with Terry.
100%. Thanks, mate. No, mate. Man. Thank you very much for your time over the past 18 months. I look forward to continuing to work with you.
You're welcome. We're going to have loads of fun. Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. Bye.